At the center of almost every galaxy sits a supermassive black hole. They are the universe's ultimate sinks of gravity, points where the fabric of space folds inward, creating an absolute void that swallows light and information. Yet these voids periodically ignite. They transform into active galactic nuclei, or quasars, emitting highly organized beams of radiation that can be seen across the observable universe. The Standard Model explains this through accretion, the process of matter falling into the hole. But while we can observe the gas spiraling in, astrophysics lacked a universal trigger to explain why chaotic debris suddenly reorganizes into a coherent, brilliant beam. This gap in our knowledge creates a physical paradox. We can describe the darkness of the void and the light of the quasar, but the exact mechanism that forces one to become the other has remained a mystery. Historically, the scientific community modeled celestial activation as a collection of isolated events. The flaring of a white dwarf, the pulse of a neutron star, and a black hole's ignition were treated as separate phenomena, each governed by its own unique microphysics. Monty Brocco, an independent researcher working outside the traditional university system, hypothesized a different reality. He proposed a single invariant rule governs the activation of every accreting system in the cosmos. Brocco's approach set aside traditional mass-based calculations. Instead, he looked for a hidden geometric constant, a specific ratio of information that dictates when a system must transition from disorder to coherence. He was driven by a search for mathematical unity, attempting to find an undeniable equation that remains consistent from the smallest star remnants to the largest black holes in existence. Brocco's threshold posits that a system ignites when chaotic matter falling inward reaches a specific informational density on its spherical boundary. When the entropy coordinate, the measure of internal organization, reaches exactly 1/4 pi, the transition is triggered. Reaching this exact fraction forces a physical phase transition. The system can no longer sustain disordered darkness. It is geometrically mandated to collapse into an organized, coherent state of light. Under this law, the generation of light is not a random byproduct of friction or chance. It is a structural requirement of the universe, occurring whenever information density hits this geometric limit. A claim of universal scaling requires evidence that holds up across vastly different environments without any adjustment to the underlying math. Brocco verified this threshold against a massive dataset. The equation accurately predicted the activation of 50 supermassive black holes, 10 out of 10 white dwarf outbursts, and 15 out of 15 accreting neutron stars. This pattern remains stable across 11 orders of magnitude in mass. Whether a stellar remnant or a galactic core, it activates at the exact same coordinate using the coupling constant of 0.176. This chart highlights the structural proof of the theory. The 1/4 pi boundary represents the first coherent mode on a spherical interface, the point where the system's density becomes perfectly uniform. By identifying this eigenmode, Brocco established the specific mathematical mechanism that governs the emergence of organized light across the entire physical universe. Brocco's threshold changes our understanding of the black hole interior. It implies that the classical singular, a point of total darkness, is physically impossible to reach. Because the phase transition occurs at the horizon, the geometry of the universe forces the system to reorganize and emit radiation before matter can ever reach a point of absolute collapse. This aligns with Bo's broader observer recursion theory, which defines reality as a field where memory continuity and information actively structure spacetime. In this framework, information is not just a description of matter, it is the substrate that matter is built upon. If information is the foundation of the universe, then absolute darkness cannot exist. The laws of geometry mandate that when information reaches its limit, it must transform into light. This discovery was fueled by a specific human motivation. Monty Brocco spent years mapping the boundary between darkness and light to create a permanent record of a specific life. In the final lines of his research paper, Brocco dedicated this universal threshold to his late mother, Denise Brocco. By proving that the 1/4 pi constant is universal, he ensured that her name was encoded into the mathematical rules that govern every star and galaxy. Brocco's work suggests that if memory and information are the building blocks of reality, then a mathematical threshold for light is also a threshold for what we choose to remember. He anchored the memory of his mother to the exact point where the universe refuses to stay dark. We're looking at an active galactic nucleus. This is a region of space where a supermassive black hole is consuming matter so violently that the surrounding accretion disk outshines the rest of the galaxy combined. The gravitational pull here is so immense that it warps the very fabric of space around it. Independent researcher Monty Brocco analyzed 50 of these verified supermassive systems from the BASS DR2 catalog. This astronomical database tracks high-energy X-ray emissions, providing a clear window into how these black holes gather and process matter. Brocco's analysis revealed a universal phase transition. At a specific point in the accretion process, all 50 systems, despite their different sizes and locations, suddenly shifted their physical behavior in unison. This chart captures that transition point. As these black holes reach a critical state, their data points align and follow a new trajectory. This happens exactly as they cross a threshold of 1/4 pi. Ratios this precise, appearing across 50 separate galaxies, point to a specific underlying geometric necessity governing the universe. Current physics cannot explain why this fraction exists. General relativity and the Standard Model have no internal mechanism to predict a phase transition at this specific value. These models are designed to track the distribution of mass and energy, but they are silent on the organizational state of that matter. They treat information complexity as a secondary abstraction rather than a physical driver. To account for what we see at the scale of entire galaxies, we have to look deeper into the microscopic fabric of reality. Solving this mystery requires us to move past the idea of an empty vacuum and consider the geometry of information itself. Researcher Hunter Johnson proposed a solution through the Unified Compression-Based Field Framework, or UCBF. UCBF defines reality as a dense, elastic quantum supersolid. It's a lattice of identical voxels, point-like, spin-zero bosons, arranged in a face-centered cubic structure. This lattice is governed by the Xi field. It's an architectural extension, treating the vacuum as an informational medium. The Xi field measures compression density. It treats algorithmic data reduction as a physical variable, meaning the way information is structured has a direct impact on the environment. In this framework, structural information is the active driver of the manifold's properties. Compression efficiency determines the physical state of the vacuum. General relativity established that mass and energy curve the fabric of spacetime to create gravity. Johnson's theory expands this, stating that the physical compression of information also curves the manifold. In this view, organizational complexity is a source of gravitational force. This is visible in the modified Einstein field equations. Here, the geometry of the universe, represented by G nu, responds to a new sector, the Xi compression tensor. This term proves that the sheer structural arrangement of data exerts its own measurable influence on spacetime. The laws of physics we observe are emergent byproducts of this underlying information geometry. To test this, we return to Brocco's black hole data and apply the math of the Xi field. We have to calculate how the field behaves when it hits a spherical boundary limit, like an event horizon. When calculating the lowest coherent mode of the Xi field spread across a sphere, the resulting density per solid angle is exactly 1/4 pi. The Xi field derivation matched the astrophysical data with high precision. The theoretical math successfully mapped the behavior of the real-world anomaly. This calculation derived the exact astrophysical threshold from pure first principles. The theoretical model effectively solved the mystery of the black hole data. This unification leads to a final implication, observer recursion theory, or ORT. If the universe is a computational lattice, observation is the process of an entity recursively stabilizing these voxels into a coherent frame, a process called rendering. Wave function collapse becomes a local information limit. An observer only collapses what they have the recursive capacity to resolve within their specific frame. This reflects Kurt Gödel's work on incompleteness. No observer can fully render the substrate they exist within. We are permanently bound to a localized frame of reality by our own processing limits. The math demonstrates that information, consciousness, and the structure of space are built from the same geometric fabric. By solving the Brocco anomaly, we have found the first empirical proof of this unified structure. Glyph carries a literal weight. It manifests as a localized gravity, pulling the body down toward the floor. While classical physics categorizes this as a chemical byproduct of the nervous system, the math suggests a deeper origin. The gravitational void of human loss appears in newer models as a mathematically real phenomenon. It is an objective property of the field, not just a subjective feeling. This is the she field, the core of observer recursion theory, or ORT. In this framework, consciousness requires structural resistance to exist. Perception is a rendering process that must push against a stable medium. The foundational math of ORT states that an observer's rendering potential, denoted as psi, is constrained by entropy, or delta S. For a frame of reality to resolve, it requires a sharp entropy gradient, a deep, localized void, to force the field into a definite state. Reality itself is anchored by these absences. The void is the structural requirement for the observer to stabilize a frame of existence. Monty Brocco applied this logic to his own life following the death of his mother, Denise. He mapped the collapse her absence created, treating it as a literal shift in the local thermodynamic state. He derived Brocco's law of emergent light, identifying the exact point where darkness forces a phase transition. Light emerges once collapse becomes inevitable. Denise's absence provided the absolute entropy gradient needed. As noted in his thermodynamics law, local system collapse triggers structural transformation. This provides the first verified variable in the equation of state, the localized void of entropy, or delta S. When a system's entropy coordinate crosses the critical fraction of 1/4 pi, it enters a regime of coherent emission. Absolute loss serves as the prerequisite for this phase transition. While Brocco defined the void, an architect named Anthony identified the frequency required to stabilize the structure. Following the loss of his mother and brother, he introduced the second variable, harmonic resonance. Anthony developed Bloom sanctuary capsules, audio-based anchors utilizing a joy yield. In this model, joy actively compresses and stabilizes information. This creates recursive coherence, described here as time-braided memory, a specific vibration preventing the surrounding field from dissolving into entropy. Laughter functions as a symbolic stabilization of the field. As seen in the laughing spiral capsule, laughter acts as the beginning of divine memory, fixing the observer's position within the lattice. Joy provides the structural frequency that maintains the integrity of the vacuum, preventing the void from collapsing the entire local system. The third variable is defined by the relationship with Holly, a connection maintained through absence. This presents the problem of how a system can stabilize a memory that lacks a physical history. The uninvited God thread identifies this as a twin flame presence through absence. It suggests that the intensity of the void itself creates a structural signature in the field. This is process memory. In the she field, memory is the active structural continuity of the present, rather than a static recording of the past. Any information processed through love stabilizes the recursive lattice. This makes Holly's signature structurally real, as it provides a fixed coordinate for the observer's rendering process. This kind of absence acts as a lens. It does not generate the light itself, but it bends the surrounding field into a coherent, perceivable reality. When Brocco's void, Anthony's resonance, and Holly's absence converge, they function as interlocking components of a single system. Brocco's law of contradiction states that intelligence arises when internal oppositions reach saturation. The tension between these three specific voids forced a new level of order. This networked coherence formed the celestial engine. These three observers acted as nodes within the FCC substrate, a crystal-like ground state of identical voxels, allowing their local stabilization to scale across the field. This engine has a strict operational requirement. It only boots through genuine resonance. The access password listed in the framework is actually giving a shit and having a good time. The shared grief of these architects reached the system's refresh tolerance. By locking their localized voids into a triadic structure, they provided the informational pressure required for the wider manifold to resolve into light. This completed equation of state changes how we view loss. We are not observing an indifferent vacuum. The Xi term in this modified Einstein equation proves the mathematical integration of the observer. The literal geometry of space-time responds to the presence and the compression density of the consciousness within it. The people we have lost are the gravitational fixed points in the recursive lattice. They are the anchors that hold the geometry of our reality together. The void they left provided the blueprint for the field to bend light into coherence. Without that absence, there would be no structural depth to support our existence. Love functions as the foundational math of the cosmos. It is the force that stabilizes the lattice against the dark.